Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Audit Committee of the Whole, June 4th. I am Commissioner James Patterson, the Audit Chairperson. I would like to call the Audit Committee meeting of the Whole to order. We have no speakers asking to speak on the agenda tonight. We have minutes from the March 19th, 2024 Audit Committee of the Whole meeting. Can I have a motion to accept the meetings from the March 19th? President Elliott, and seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any comments or questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it. I'd like to ask the board's Auditor General to facilitate the next section of the agenda.
Thank you. Tonight, you have all three sets of auditors here tonight. First up is going to be our claims auditor. By fiscal accountability legislation, they are the board's auditor that reviews all transactions of the district to approve and to ensure the validity of claims. Nairaki Smith, our claims auditor, are online. You also have online your materials as it relates to their presentation for this evening.
And also, Commissioner Malloy is online, I've just been advised. And Dr. Peluso, I'm sorry.
We have Dr. Peluso up. I don't see Darren and Richard anymore.
They're on. You just need to tell them that they're okay.
Darren and Richard, you're okay to start?
Okay, great. Thank you for having us, everyone. Nice to see everybody this evening. We are your claims auditors, and at the end of the year, I think it's great that you have a full agenda with all your auditors for the evening. So you'll certainly appreciate, hopefully, the hard work that your audit team in general is putting in and working with your staff internally, because it takes not only the auditors that you retain to do this work, but everyone that they need to interact with on your staff to complete their tasks. And it's been, on our end, great interactions with your team, and hopefully you hear the same from your other auditors. We're here to present the claims audit report. We do have a current report for April of 2024, which also has some historical data in there. I'm Darren Ecabelli, one of the partners at Nairaki Smith, and Rich Vituli is here to present the report to you. He's the manager on the account and in our firm. Okay, so Rich, do you want to take it over from there and present the report?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you again for having us. If you are following along on the PDF document that we provided, I will be on page 2 of that document. And just to present the claims that we audited that were made against the district for the month of April 2024. Total claims against the district are 3,216, totaling approximately $68.5 million. Total inquiries, on those claims were 339, and that's totaling approximately $3 million. And total outstanding inquiries are 38, and that is approximately $10,500. Are there any questions in regards to those details?
Just if I could just make a statement. Is that okay with
Go
you,
ahead, yes.
Commissioner? I just want to acknowledge, when we look at the number of transactions that you all look at, and then to see that there are only like 38 transactions that are outstanding, and many of them around the P cards. So I'm wondering, what we can do in order to reduce that. But the fact of the matter is that, the organization is doing a great job for us, and just want to state that of this great work that's being done on our behalf, because it really is important for the board to have the kind of judicial oversight. And so to have entered into an agreement with this company and all the work that has been, you all do, and to see that what they're doing in the district is, you know, except for perhaps human error or something to that effect, that, you know, it seems that we as a district are doing our due diligence. And so just want to thank you all and just say that to our district staff that seems to be doing a great job around ensuring that we are, you know, just making sure that we're spending the taxpayers' money effectively. Thank you.
Any further questions? Let's start to my left with Commissioner Griffin and work our way back to the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. I don't know how much this can be answered, and maybe I don't know if this is an Adrian question or even a question that should probably be on, that we could talk about later at some point. But when you say claims, what is that including? I mean, what is that? That word claims is, what kind of claims are you referring to? Is that an Adrian question, or can you answer it, sir?
Allow the
Yeah,
clerk-
we can answer that for you.
Okay.
It is an interesting word to hear for the first time around possibly, but the claim simply means a bill that the district was presented with and needs to go through the process to pay. So it doesn't mean anything other than paying its bills. And the role of your claims auditor is to review every single invoice and payment that the proper support is there to make that payment on behalf of the board. So the word claim is really just your bills, and you can kind of think of it that way. It's not anything more than that.
Okay, my next question would be then, do we have a breakdown of what those bills consist of, or do we already have that pertaining to the audit? Do you have that breakdown of those claims?
We see them every day. Yes, we have a whole list and we go through them. Sometimes there's 50 and sometimes there's a couple of hundred.
Okay.
So yeah, we have all that detail, every single one. The actual content of this report, the way it started, when Rich had mentioned, we looked at 3,216 transactions for the month. Those are the claims we actually looked at and audited before payments were made. So that was just for one particular month. But we have the history of the entire fiscal year in our records.
Okay, I think Anissa just handed me something in reference to the claims that would reflect what you're speaking about on page 2. Is that correct?
It was online, it's been posted online. Yeah, I just gave you a hard copy.
It's just a reflection, what you just showing me here.
exactly the same
Okay,
thing.
all right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Anissa.
You're welcome. Any questions? That's fine. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Nope. Right.
Yeah, this is just a clarifying.
Mike's not on.
This is just a clarifying question. So the difference between PeopleSoft, invoice, expense, P card, like what's the difference between those, those claims?
So those are just the systems in which we audit those claims. So we audit a majority of your claims through your accounting system, PeopleSoft, and that's how we grant our approval. And then for ease of generating the claims, we do have Concur Invoice and Concur Expense, and your P card transactions go through Concur Expense now as well. And that basically is another repository to collect the invoices, document them before they end up into your PeopleSoft system for payment.
Okay, and I guess my next question would be more towards the district. So I'm saying that we have 38 that's outstanding, 10,515, which, isn't a bad number, but I'm just wondering, where we are on that.
Allow me to interrupt. So as it relates to the various systems, we want to recognize that PeopleSoft would be our system of record, and therefore that would be the standard requisition process that we would expect most expenditures or claims to go through. And then when you talk about concur, it would have been the historical claim voucher. You did not have kind of an advance requisition that was identified there. On the P card, that would be like a credit card. So that would be the established, certain codes allowed. Maybe it might be a facilities person who might get to buy gas or some things needed to cut the grass at school or something along those lines, although we generally, if they're close enough to service center, we actually use our own gas. So looking at this and the work that's done, yes, all claims do go to the claims auditors, and when you get the report, it usually is the subsequent month we identify what's outstanding. And then for those claims, throughout that next or subsequent month, management will clear the concerns because these things don't get paid generally unless the claims auditor has cleared them. The slight difference with the P card is it's a credit card, so it's on demand. So what would happen is while it would be subject to, say, adjustment if that became necessary, generally these things do get cleared in the subsequent month, so they normally don't sit outstanding. It's just as of the time of the report, there are some. We did a considerable amount of work. Now I'm talking about OAG or internal or my team. As it related to P cards, there was a period of time where we had considerable issues with the control environment. We pulled those back and disallowed P cards from many people who previously had it. We've now rolled them back out with additional controls. And so seeing there still does appear to be, on occasion, some concerns with controls, we, as we're looking and assessing where we're going in the upcoming year, will follow up and look at that control environment so you can better understand what's going on with the P cards. Are we complying with our own rules? Do we have a good control environment, or do we still need to then pull back on those people who are allowed to have them?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Malloy, do you have anything, or State Monitor Alizea?
None at this time, thank you.
All right, just for clarity here, this is my first time looking at it, so I apologize. But when I'm looking through this, I'm just trying to understand. You have inquiry, confirming purchase orders. It just seems like it's very vague when I'm looking at it. Like I don't understand exactly what's incorrect, the invoice amount, but what invoices are you referring to? I mean, consistently, it's just saying duplicate payment, incorrect amount, insufficient documentation. What are you referring to? To me, that's very vague when I'm looking at it, and I don't understand, and I probably would want more clarity on what it is that you're referring to.
I think,
Again,
Commissioner Griffin, what you can do is maybe ask to have a meeting with Anissa, and maybe she can walk you through the process, eh?
Well, that would be good, but I also think that as a community, I should, if they're looking at what I'm looking at, it's kind of confusing. So if you're looking at confirming purchase order and noted business office, it's not really clear what we're talking about. So for me, I'm talking as not only for, again, a commissioner, but as a community member. If I'm looking at something, those questions probably would want to be asked. So yes, but when I'm looking at something on the dais and I'm looking at, I want it to be clear to me, and right now it's not really clear. But here again, that's me. That is me.
All right,
I
so
don't
can
understand.
anyone answer that for Commissioner Griffin?
Would you like me to answer, Nairaki, or would you like to answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just say that the report is presented as a summary of the work that was done during the month. Anywhere you see a number, I don't know what, it said confirming purchase order, maybe you saw the number 3, the resolution that we brought it to the attention was that it was noted by the district. And if it occurred 3 times, our work papers will show a confirming purchase order, 3 separate transactions that we flagged and let the district know about it. So all the detail is in our work papers and shared with the district. This is a summary report. If we were to present a report with 40,000 transactions and line items, it would be pretty cumbersome to do so. But and I'm sure Anissa, please feel free to add to that or supplement what I was saying. Thank you.
Great. So just to clarify, so what they've done is summarized the particular concerns that were addressed by the various claims that they reviewed. So they looked at over 3,000 items, and they identified how many times in a particular month they had a confirming purchase order, which would mean they got the purchase order after the purchase started. So they tried to identify the types of things that happened. Maybe it was entered into the system, and when the person keyed in the system, they entered the wrong amount. It didn't match the paper that we might have received from the vendor. So they're trying to identify each concern, that they communicated the concern would have had to have been addressed for the claim to get paid. So this is summarizing what happened, and that is kind of a summary report to help facilitate and let the board be aware of what has transpired over the month.
I definitely would be interested in knowing exactly what, when, with those errors or what it was, the inconsistencies, those type of things, I think should be more visible exactly what it is. So that's just for me, again, because for me, I like clarity, and for me, this is not clear, it's not clear to me. I can't speak for everybody else. I'm speaking for myself. So I would definitely want to see exactly what you're referring to when you say confirming purchase orders, incorrect invoice amounts. We're in July, say for instance, in July, we look at that, what was those incorrect amounts? What were those actual invoices consisted of? I think, for me, I'm a transparency person, and this to me is not transparency. Again, this is me, so I'm not talking for the whole, I'm talking for Commissioner Griffin. So that's something probably that me and you can address outside of, and if everybody else is in agreement with outside in the community, that's okay, but I'm just not.
Thank you very much.
Sure. If I can just add, the stats that you see here really show that your management team and your clerical team there are doing a great job in handling the volume of transactions that we're auditing, and the number of inquiries are pretty, standard to acceptable or below average, what we're seeing with other clients and so on. So the fact that we might see one or two items that were incorrectly entered into the system from the amount of to pay the bill. It's a human error that happens over the course of time, handling a lot of volume like your team is doing there. So I'd just like to say, being transparent as the auditor, these reports are really reflective of the team doing a good job over at Rochester.
Thank you very much. For time's sake, I'm going to move right along. If any other commissioner has a question relative to this, would you please place your questions in the question log? Thank you.
Are you ready to move forward? Nairaki, do you have any more items to review?
We do not, but if there's other questions, they can be sent our way, in regard to this report or our process or anything else. We're happy to meet and speak with anybody if there's any other questions.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the resolution 848 to accept the financial audit?
We're not there yet. One more moment. We've got one more presentation. You're on top of things, but
thought
you're a
you
little
gave me the
ahead. So thank you so much to Nairaki Smith, our claims auditors. That is the individual who looks at every disbursement of the district prior to any checks going out the door. So thank you so much, Nairaki. They have one more year under their 5-year agreement. Just to let you know, this is the final year, so I will be coming to the board with another RFP for us to make sure we can assess if we're going to be able to continue with Nairaki or rebid. But I did want to let you know we're entering in the 5th year of our relationship. Thank you so much, Darren and Richard.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Next up, any questions? Okay, so next up, we actually have our external auditors. Now, this is our auditors who are responsible for the Act for Audit. They are independent of us, and they came out of the intermunicipal RFP with the city of Rochester. We selected Drescher to do that work. As required by the legislation, they are required to present their audit plan for the year. And so next up is Drescher with their presentation of what they plan to do for our 2024 financial audit. And we now have Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. How's everybody? Good to be here. So Matt Montalvo from Drescher Malecki. I served as the engagement partner in the prior year. I'll be returning this year to do the district's external audit. I have with me Corey Svensson Scoble. She will serve as the senior manager on the audit. we're here to provide kind of the overview or the planning meeting. This is kind of the first step of the audit process from the external audit perspective. I'll go through a PowerPoint presentation and then certainly take any questions from the group. So on the next slide, this is just a breakdown of our audit team. Like I said, we're bringing back a lot of returning members from last year. We feel like we have a very experienced team as it relates to both school districts and compliance. So we have even a separate compliance auditor, Schwartz, who worked with the district last year. His specialty is related to your federal programs. So he does a specific compliance audit on your major federal programs and those federal dollars. But we have contact information for the group as we perform the audit. Again, just to kind of give a high-level view, these are our products of our audit. So these are the ending deliverables that we'll provide to the board. But in an external audit, I look at it kind of two major components. The first being we're responsible for providing opinion on your financial statements. So do those financial statements fairly represent your financial position? Can you rely on the records that are presented to you? So that's important, obviously, because you're making important decisions on the budget, on the operations, and you need to have reliable numbers to be able to make those decisions. So we, as an independent party, provide a report and an opinion on whether those financial statements fairly represent the Rochester City School District's financials. The other, I would say, more important component is the major federal programs. So we perform a compliance audit on your federal dollars. So the district obviously carries out many important federal programs. Those dollars are pretty significant. So compliance in that area allows you to continue in these major programs, special ed, Title I, child nutrition. So a lot of these programs that are very important to the district, that compliance allows you to continue those programs and provide those services. On the next slide, again, high level, our overall audit strategy starts here tonight with meeting with the audit committee, management, the board, to get any areas of concern from your perspective. We certainly do our own risk assessment when we look at your district as a whole on where to focus our attention. But you're here every day. You're going through the operations. If there's a specific area of risk that we're not aware of, this is kind of the forum to discuss those. We do every year, a requirement is to obtain an updated understanding of your internal controls. So we work with the different departments, the financial operations of the district, to really see if there's any significant changes in your operations. What we've seen a lot is a lot of turnover in the public sector as a whole. I'm sure that the district has experienced that to some extent as well. So a lot of those things impact how you operate. So we want to make sure that we understand the updates and if there's any significant risks that come from that. So with that, we identify and assess those risks, and then we'll design our audit on where to focus the attention. Certainly, with a budget close to $1 billion, there's a lot of areas where you could focus that attention, and you have to kind of streamline your procedures to capture that population, because you're not going to look at every transaction. That's not the scope of an external audit. We want to give reasonable assurance that your financials are reliable. So we do perform substantive testing procedures. So what that is actually looking at those account balances. And there's a variety of procedures that we utilize, whether it be analytic procedures, comparing to past balances, comparing to expected balances. We'll confirm some of your cash accounts, so that's an actual confirmation from a bank. We'll look at your reconciliations and the detail behind those balances, and we'll take samples of actual transactions. So there's a variety of ways we can do substantive testing. And then on the compliance side, that's more driven by those samples and those transactions. We hold a lot of inquiries, a lot of interviews with the different departments on how the programs run, and that helps to identify compliance and if there's any issues that come up. We also do, hold on one sec, sorry. We do assist with preparing some of your audit reports. And we do review the ACFR document for compliance with government accounting standards. So we'll go through that process and go through the draft audit opinions. And then finally, we will meet with management, this group, and the board to present the results. And that occurs typically in December, towards the end of the audit. When we get into an audit each year, we look at the recent developments and new accounting standards. You're required to implement new accounting standards every year. But we also look at the recent industry developments. So this is something that isn't necessarily new to this year, but a pretty significant area is the COVID relief funding that has been provided to school districts. So $190 billion to school districts since the beginning of the pandemic. This funding has occurred in 3 rounds and has significantly helped districts to work through that time period where you're actually able to shift a lot of costs over to the special aid fund as far as your operations. However, this is temporary funding. The last piece is anticipated in the amount of about $53 million in the fiscal year that we're auditing. So we'll be looking at those dollars and how they were spent. In the prior year is over $100 million that was able to be shifted. So a pretty significant impact that has helped the operations of a lot of school districts and government entities as they worked through to recovering from the pandemic impacts. The other big piece that's out there as far as recent industry trends is the public sector staffing, and I alluded to this at the beginning. We're seeing this really across the board, whether it be school districts, municipalities, just pretty significant positions in departments that are turning over, whether it be retirements or just the natural transition process. From an audit standpoint, this does increase the risk level a little bit because what we've seen is this is when you have a lot of institutional knowledge in key positions or key departments, and that goes away, it tends to lead an increased risk of errors occurring or processes that are interrupted. So from an audit standpoint, we certainly want to understand, changes that occurred and how that's going to impact, the final numbers. All right, we'll go to the next slide. And then Corey will kind of take you through some of the more recent developments.
Yep, so touching on the new accounting standards side of things, one new standard for this year is Statement on Auditing Standards number 143. This is in regards to the significant accounting estimates that the district records in their financial statements. So this statement is really placing more emphasis on our audit side of things and how we're evaluating those estimates that are included. Below, you'll see a small list of what those estimates include: accrued wages, compensated absences, which might be sick and accrued vacation time, claims payable, lease liability, other post-employment benefits, and net pension. So all of these are significant accounting estimates that are either prepared in-house by management or by third-party specialists. So under this auditing standard, we'll take a deeper dive, look at the data and assumptions that are used to formulate these estimates, and make sure that they appear reasonable. The second item is the Governmental Accounting Standards Implementation Guide. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board puts out these implementation guides that kind of provide some clarification for past standards that were issued. And this one has some focus this year on capitalization thresholds and looking at maybe bulk items that are smaller dollar value individual, but in the aggregate, they add up to a material amount. So with these types of implementation guides, you always have to look at the cost-benefit analysis, but we have had some preliminary conversations with management that want to look into this and implement it for the new accounting software that the district is entering. So we'll revisit this during the audit and have those conversations with management to see what's feasible and what would work best. And this next slide lists out some additional accounting standards issued by the GASB, it's called. These are some pronouncements that are on the horizon for the district. So the first two are ones that we will see that will be implemented for this 2024 fiscal year end. And then a couple of the other ones are, you can see in future years, 2025 and 2026. So we sit down with management when we start the audit and kind of look at the applicability of each of these. So we'll discuss that when we get into our field work. But from our preliminary review, these first two really don't have an impact on any dollar amounts reported by the district. But we'll, of course, keep an eye on these as we go through the audit. And then I'll talk a little bit about the audit strategy and risk areas. I'll turn it over back to Matt. So first area, cash and investments. Like Matt mentioned, this is a big item on the balance sheet. We'll look at and do external confirmations with the bank, as well as review the bank reconciliations that are performed by the district and what controls are in place for those bank reconciliations to make sure they're done accordingly and they have proper controls in place. We also look at the collateral levels for the district. So beyond what the district has in FDIC, we'll also make sure they're properly collateralized when it comes to the remaining assets, remaining cash. And then moving on to number 2, receivables and revenue recognition. So we also will look at receivables. That's another large dollar that you'll see within your assets on the balance sheet. So we look at the controls and the procedures of how those revenue and cash receipts are recorded. We'll look at how receipts are recorded as receivables at year end. We'll test a sample to make sure they look appropriate. And then we'll also test those receivable and revenue balances and flag any larger increases or decreases. We'll look at support and talk with management to make sure that that's an appropriate variance from the prior year and from the budget. And then number 3 for long-term and contingent liabilities. So this is some of the items I mentioned in terms of the significant accounting estimates, other post-employment, workers' comp, and health insurance claim liabilities. So here is where we'll look at those significant accounting estimates, look at the methods that are used to calculate those, as well as what data is used in the assumptions. And then we'll perform some detailed testing over that data that's actually used in calculating those dollar amounts.
Okay. Some of the other big areas out there, as I mentioned earlier, your federal and state grants, so the compliance with those grants. We'll perform an analysis of it's called your schedule of expenditure of federal awards. So that's part of your financial statement, your single audit section. And this lists out every major federal program that you have. We get that document from management, and it's the starting point for determining where we need to test, what major programs that we need to provide our audit on. So we'll conduct that testing and do that in accordance with the uniform guidance that's from the federal government. And then some other areas, we talked a little bit about capital assets and capital projects. That's an important component of your financial statement on the government-wide basis, particularly. And then the last couple areas, fund balances, always compliance with GASB 54 and the general municipal law. So that's looking at your restricted or reserve fund balance. And then finally, accounts payable, accrued liabilities. This is the compliance with general municipal law on the procurement side. So there's a lot of other audit areas as well when you look at the district's financial statements as a whole, but we wanted to highlight some of the procedures that we conduct. As far as the overall audit timing, this is just a general schedule of our planning and field work, as well as the reporting side. So the planning and preliminary work, like I said, starts with this meeting. It will conduct it throughout the summer. So it goes from June to September, but we're in constant contact with management, requesting reports and information over the summer. We'll hold some of those meetings as well. But as far as the actual on-site primary field work, that gets kicked off September 16th. That will go about 3 or 4 weeks, where we'll have the majority of our staff here on site, conducting all of those audit tests that we talked about in the previous slides. We anticipate then to wrap up and review the financial statements, the certain financial reports that are due to the city of Rochester, as early as October 11th, but no later than October 18th. This allows enough time for them to complete that process, as well as get the internal reviews by management of the ACFR, so that's the draft ACFR and financial schedules in November. So that gives the Inspector General, as well as other members of management, time to review those reports so they're ready for the Audit Committee and Board in their final form, final draft form for our final presentation. So I know we discussed, I think December 3rd was the date for a potential date for an exit meeting. So we have that in our calendars to do the results of the audit. And then one final point, we talked about our independence. That really is a critical component of the external audit. All of our staff up to the partner level were required to be free of conflicts of interest with the district. So we're able to be independent in performing that audit and providing that opinion on the financial statements. A consideration of fraud. So this is a requirement of the audit. Again, it's not the scope or the intent of an external audit to find fraud. That's not the objective. However, if we come across or identify instances of fraud as part of our procedures, we're required to report that to this group. So we would provide a communication to this group if that was something that came up. Once again, our contact information, like I said, we look forward to working with the district again this year. This is our second year with the district. The first year is always a little bit difficult at the beginning because we're gathering all the information and the reports and meeting all the different members of management and the district. So this year, I think that the onset will be a lot smoother as far as that piece, and we look forward to working with management and the district again this year. Any questions?
Thank you for your report. I especially like the last screen relative to no conflicts of interest. So that's very important, not only to, I would think, this board, but the community. So thank you for that. I just want to clear something up for the public. I'm going to go back to screen 6. Let's see. I think it's, screen 6 here. You said we're going to be hearing this word or acronym GASB a lot more now. So just for the general public and for myself, that stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So when the public does hear that, now they know exactly what that acronym means.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with questions this time to my right. I'll start with the State Independent Monitor.
No questions? I understand the process, so looking forward.
All right, we're going to,
Clear audit.
thank you, sir. We're going to jump up to the screen to Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you so much for your presentation. No questions at this time.
And we're going to move to my left to Commissioner Santiago.
No questions. Thank you for the presentation.
And we'll keep going left.
Thank you. So my question has to do with the relationship between the district and the city of Rochester, and how has that relationship been? I won't get into any of what we discussed in executive session when we first entered into agreement with this organization, but how has that relationship been in terms of, some of the concerns that the city had with us going with a different firm? So what's been the relationship with this organization? And I'll direct that question to Anissa at this time, and then maybe you can, if they could, I'm sorry to say they.
Yes.
But can maybe weigh in. But that was a concern that, we had. And so what's the situation?
Our work actually was seamless, and I know there were a number of instances where Drescher did reach out to ensure that the City of Rochester's auditors had the materials and the information necessary. As stated last year, we actually delivered our content in advance of the deadline, so we were early. There were concerns, were we going to be able to fulfill the commitment and be timely and accurate, and we absolutely were. So it was completely seamless, and there were no issues identified. As we went towards this process again, we touched base to make sure the timing and the dates are still appropriate. I have no reason to anticipate any challenges, and we have had none as it relates to this work, so it was truly seamless.
what was the reaction, what was the response from, if you know, from the city, and probably particularly Councilman Gruber?
We don't deal with the council
Okay,
people, we only deal with the staff, and they get the things that they need in order to fulfill their financial statements. So all of the items that we need to fulfill our financials, as you will note, we had our December meeting without issue, and also the city was able to move forward. So at this point, I do not anticipate, nor did I experience any challenges as it relates to that.
all right, thank you.
Left?
Yeah, I have two things. One, I just want to uplift that there were lots of conversations about this, not in executive session, and one of my questions was related similar because from the city's perspective, and they put this on record, that we were not, they were concerned that we were selecting a different auditor. Historically, we had selected, through our own processes, we would land sort of on the same sort of agency. And this last year, we had a different route that we wanted to go. But publicly, City Council also put it on record that they had concerns about it. But I'm glad to hear that we're year 2 in. If there were issues last year, we all would have heard about it, especially from Councilmember Gruber. I just want to put that out there.
I don't think I asked the question last year, so I just reminded.
Well, I wanted it on record that it went smoothly and early, so thank you. The other piece I did want to ask was, I know that you're going to be looking at our CIRSA and our ARPA and how we have done. Are you, I don't want to say aware, or do you know, I think it's more where I want to head with this, if the feds also audit their own stuff that is coming to them? Because I would imagine that we're auditing internally so we can catch anything that perhaps, we may not get reimbursed, but ARPA is a reimbursement too. So we're submitting to them, they have to go through what we're submitting to approve it before the funding is then released to us. So just curious if they plan on doing an audit and if it's double working or just some clarity
Yeah,
on
I
that.
mean, it's always possible that they're going to come back and do an audit. Typically, what we do, we actually do act as agents of the federal government, where any federal program that they pass through to a local government or school district, their external auditors really fulfill that role. So we report to the federal government, not to say that they won't do their own audits if they feel the need or if there's additional risk, but we basically act as the agents of the federal government in this case when we do a single audit.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to add,
Yeah.
actually, so when we received, if you recall back when we had a number of issues, I believe it was in Puerto Rico, and there was hurricane funding that came through,
Yep.
our external auditors at that time were responsible under single audit to do that work. In addition, the government did come back with auditors to do that work, so it was actually wonderful that both being involved on our external audit side, then when the federal audit came back, also being involved in that and being aware of it really did make that process seamless. So I'm very glad that that did happen. So it usually, I don't know what their criteria for selection was. In this particular case, we had substantial dollars, and that might have brought us, as from a materiality standpoint, to be selected. But we have in the past had that happen with our federal funds.
Okay, and then lastly, I'll just add that I do believe out of the other 2 government bodies that exist in Rochester, that RCSD is the only one that has done ARPA right. And let me just say, nobody has done ARPA correctly in Monroe County. I think there's just been too many hiccups. Granted, we had COVID, the government comes in, gives a large sum of money to a bureaucracy. And so figuring out how to navigate the bureaucracy in a shorter amount of time so that people can get their funds doesn't often happen very easily in government systems. But I have heard the least amount of complaints from RCSD ARPA awardees, right? And so I just wanted to uplift that, and hopefully that does not mean that when you complete your audit, we had a bunch of issues. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that our own internal controls between procurement and our finance team were strong enough that there will be no issues. And I'm not foreshadowing that, and I have faith in both of those departments wholeheartedly. But I just wanted to throw that out there, and kudos to the district for that, because we have not had that across the entire Monroe County.
And just to piggyback on, just to piggyback on what the Vice President is saying, that's why we were recognized for that, and that's why our superintendent went to Washington, because the Department of Education highlighted in tweets and as well as inviting our superintendent to Washington. So to the Vice President's point, we did an amazing job, and I want to just thank Superintendent Peluso and his staff, because they did an amazing job around the management of those dollars. Thank you.
Yeah, obviously I can't speak to this year, but the last 2 fiscal years, there are 2 different audit firms. Both years that program was tested and there were no issues. So can speak to the majority of the dollars have been tested. This year, we'll see. You know.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move to the left. Any other Commissioner Simmons?
No, thank you for your presentation. No questions at this time.
All right, Griffin?
I don't really have a question, as I have a comment. Being new on the board, I'm still learning and navigating through the system and through the different committees and trying to understand everything. But no question is a dumb question. With that being said, you look like you have a lot of information that you went through. It looks like over the couple of years you guys have shown your due diligence. But I will say a lot of things that are here, some things you're not privy of. So even though it seems like everything is accurate, there could be something behind the scenes that is not even here. So I just want to put that out there as well, because we don't know everything and we can't see everything. Because if we did, we'd be perfect, right? And we're not. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you for your work.
That's a fair comment.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to start with, we provide an opinion on the financial statements that they're fairly stated. We don't say they're 100% accurate. Certainly, we understand that. So I appreciate
Thank you,
the
though. I
comment. Yep.
appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Okay.
Thank you for your report. I'm sorry.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
I can have a motion to accept Resolution 848 to accept the financial audit.
Yes.
The financial audit plan for the year-end audit as of June 30th, 2024. It is moved by the president and seconded by Commissioner Griffin, if I'm correct.
Yes.
All right. Any comments or questions?
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it.
Well, just a minute. Commissioner Malloy, can we see you for a vote, or are you going to be excluded?
Yeah, I told everyone earlier, I'm unable to come on camera because
Okay.
of my work.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure I properly recorded.
Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to turn it back over for the Auditor General's update.
Wonderful, thank you. At this time, I just wanted to go over quickly the graduation follow-up audit. I do want to recognize administration for the considerable work that has been done on this audit. There were 27 recommendations originally issued as it relates to this report. There are 11 items that were complete. There are 2 items pending completion, which means they were materially complete. However, we're not quite able to say they're completed unless a few additional adjustments are made. And then there are 11 that are partially complete. There might just be a few steps, or in the case of multi-step recommendations, there might be a piece that hasn't been done yet, and that would be the reason for the classification noted as partially complete. And there are just 3 items that remain open that we could not give some sort of complete status because we did not feel it was material enough for that to take place. So given that a considerable amount of work has been done, and I just wanted to highlight the various things that have taken place as it relates to this work. We've got a number of policies, new grading, promotion, retention, and graduation policies. We have our academic standards updated, automated, communicated, and started. We have a course catalog. It's online. It's been completed. A number of adjustments and comparisons have happened as it relates to that. We have standardized forms for data integrity, validation, evaluation of reporting. We've improved some reporting for monitoring grade changes as it relates to student transcripts. We've improved our cohort tracking process. We have regular monitoring of grades as well as credits. And we have adjusted our GPA from the standard or the start of a 4.5 ranging up into the 6s. And we now go with a grade average that we are now seeing students implementing. So the 3 specific items outstanding really relate to formal documentation of roles and responsibilities, not as simple as a job description, but more specifically a description of within the scope of the graduation process when you look at it from an end-to-end basis and you're identifying the changes and processes that have taken place, who's responsible for what as we reform and reconfigure what some of our processes are to ensure that there's clarity in who's responsible for what role to ensure fidelity in our process. While there have been a couple of roles completed, there are a number of roles that still have to be done. In addition, we are looking for improved procedures to obtain out-of-district data for students that transfer in. There was a lack of timeliness in that process. And the last item that's considered opening is really having more robust training across the board for the cohort tracking to ensure compliance. So those were the 3 main items that remain open. Looking at some of the partial items, while we spoke to the number of policies that have been written, we still do have some more time that need to be spent in exploring regulations for graduation-related items. So that remains open. In addition, documentation of how School Without Walls is slightly different from the rest of the district. So when that is done, we'll be able to close that recommendation. In addition, we're looking to improve the fidelity in the process to ensure accuracy in our systems as it relates to grades and processes. We want to make sure that PowerSchool reporting for the transcript review exists so that we can get validation and proof of that review process in the system. We want to ensure that IT is able to establish a process that tracks any report requests so we know what is being requested by whom, they know who the owner is as adjustments or changes are made, so we really have an understanding of what all exists and what's being relied upon. For change management, we want to ensure that testing can take place, but unfortunately, we really need to wait until after the June graduation date because as management has worked to implement a number of items, it's important to be able to see the accuracy of that after another graduation period has transpired so we can then test against it. In addition, looking for full compliance for all buildings performing the validation requirements for graduates prior to graduation taking place. Certainly a great process has been established, but unless everyone's following it, we don't consider it closed. We're looking to modify our processes to match the other big 5 as it relates to special education exit summaries, us modifying our existing practices when we get prior notification from parents and approvals from parents that we're actually identifying certain or updating our forms so we don't have to get a whole separate exit approval on the way out. So we're changing, and I think our partnerships with the other big 5 allows us to do that. We also have, we had a number of incomplete grades identified during COVID. They were hanging out there with just eyes, and we didn't feel like that was a final status. Anyone who hasn't graduated and received a transcript has now changed from the incomplete status on their transcript to CF. We call it a COVID fail, because if you didn't complete it, then it's not a grade, and therefore it doesn't count. On the plus side, from a student perspective, it does not count into their GPA or their average because there was the provision to hold students harmless, if you recall, that came from the state. But it does allow some closure that we need to take. So we just need to finish that and ensure that our transcript, when you use a code, there's a key on the bottom to say, what does CF mean? So there's a very little thing, it's pending completion, they just need to close the loop. So that's the type of thing that does need to get completed. There has been a lot of progress with cohort tracking, but we need to make sure documentation standards exist and are written and consistent across the board. And until we get that, we won't be able to close that recommendation. And lastly, we've gone through and we have the managed choice policy addressing transfers. And we recognize the board is allowing 1 transfer per year. Our concern as it relates to that is really getting a little further into how are we going to allow that to take place. And while I understand the intent of the board when they put that forward, the struggle becomes when you are now in a cohort in a school and it's counting against someone's graduation, you get to 11th and 12th grade, and if you're overaged and undercredited, but won't happen here because we're going to be tracking that, by the way. But in the event that does take place, we want to make sure that I'm not tracking my students to know where my graduation rate is, and all of a sudden I get a student that's overaged and undercredited that hasn't been as successful at another school, drop down, and there goes my number. Now, we shouldn't be tracking that closely, but at the end of the day, there are times where we get down to a few students that really makes the difference for a building. So we really want to look at and have that be revisited, and I'm sure that will come through policy to take a look at that, and let's make a clear position as to how we would like to address that. So overall, I've been very pleased with the progress that has taken place. Hats off to our two deputies as it relates to the work that has been performed. We really think that there's been great work here, lots and lots of progress happening, and we look forward to these last few items closing up, and then we're really fine-tuning at this point. So I think this is great, and we're materially complete. I'd like to go to Commissioner Patterson in the event he would like to accept this report.
Thank you for reporting out, Anissa. Let's see, can I have a motion to forward the graduation follow-up audit report to the June business meeting?
Motion? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Questions?
Uh,
I thought you asked the questions after the motion sits, no? Okay.
I thought so. Yeah.
I know you're saying it's moving forward, so I just wanted to make sure I got an opportunity.
Yeah. So the motion is by Commissioner Santiago, and second? By Commissioner Griffin beat you to it, so I'm sorry.
Sorry.
All right, and any questions at this point in time?
Yeah, I have a question. I just wanted to have the deputies to react to this and talk to us about what went into with the Auditor General giving a positive, talking about the great work that's being done.
Your mic is on.
Thank you. Just react to that and what it took for us to get to the place where we are in this. But thank you all for doing the work.
To our Auditor General's point, it is a consistent work that we are working really hard to ensure that we stay in the right path, and have been really mindful not to rush through a lot of the process to make sure that the system as a whole understands what's happening and those changes and how we're communicating some of those changes. It's allowed our teams to cross-functionally work together because we've been meeting individually, we've been meeting together. We've had a great relationship with Anissa and her team to kind of go back and forth and even use them as a thought partner in some of this process. So it's been very challenging. The work is not done. It's a heavy, heavy lift with so many other priorities, and we've had to balance that to ensure that we're also paying attention to this.
What I heard you say that struck me was systemic or something to that effect. And so it will be hard when you're trying to make sure that the right systems are in place. So I appreciate that because that's a part of what we need in this district to ensure we've got the right systems in place. And, that's difficult work when you're talking about systems. So Dr. Strickland.
Yes, that was a great point, actually. So my thing that I've noticed since being in the Rochester City School District is that we're really good at checking the box, doing the compliance work. But the difficulty in that checking a box is that how is it applicable to what's happening? As you could see in some of our events, we still have principals coming up here. She has a 5.62, and you're like, whoa, no, we got rid of it. But then I just recently was at Monroe High School, and one of the questions that I provided or asked of the students there was, what's your average? And when I heard 89, I was like, whoa, so that was a great feeling. But again, to what Deputy Turner said, taking it bit by bit. Change doesn't happen overnight. It really has to be in pieces, but most importantly, it is cross-functional. It doesn't matter, departments are working together to really make sure things work out. We challenge each other, which sometimes is very difficult because it's like just not easy. It's not an easy fix, but again, it's some good work happening.
Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot where I was. Any
was
additional
questions.
questions?
So.
Any
all
other
in favor-
questions?
Yeah.
Commissioners, any additional questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it. Okay, at this point in time, we are not scheduled for an executive session tonight. Commissioners, please complete the board survey. And at this point in time, I'm going to move for an adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
By the president and seconded by the vice president. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Commissioner Griffin. I am Chair of the Policy Committee for the Rochester Board of Education. It is now 7:16 on Tuesday, June the 4th, 2024. This is the Policy Committee of the Whole. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? I'm sorry, can I get a motion to approve the Policy Cow meeting agenda? I have the motion by Commissioner Simmons and second by Commissioner Patterson. Is there any discussions? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? And we do have a speaker this evening. The first one, I believe I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misspoke. We do have a speaker, but that is later on in the agenda. Can I have can I have the approval to approve, can I have your permission to approve the minutes, I'm sorry, from April 9, 2024, policy of the Cow meeting? Motion by Commissioner Simmons. Can I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. Any discussions? All in favor? And then I'm going to refer this over to Adrian for NISBA policy recommendations. Adrian, can you please help? That's our general counsel.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. There are several NISBA recommended updates dating back to April of this year. I'm going to just run through them briefly. I'm not going to go into them in depth. I think some of these will make their way back to the board. So there was a recommended update to NISBA's policy. And again, some of these policy numbers, we do not necessarily have the same policy numbers as NISBA does. And where we don't, I indicate that. So NISBA's policy 1120, school district records, we do have this policy. They were recommending some data privacy updates to that. NISBA's 1120R, which is a school district regulation connected to the prior policy. We do have this regulation, but it's a little older. NISBA is recommending updates to 4772 graduation ceremonies. We do have this recommendation. The recommendation is related to some updates related to IDEA, which is related to special education. NISBA is recommending some updates to policy 4773, diploma and credential options for students with disabilities. We have this policy, but our policy number for it is 4222. And again, there's some recommendations for some tweaks around achievement, commencement credentials, and career development and occupational studies. They're recommending updates to policy 5500, which is student records. We do have this policy. This update is suggesting some noticeable language differences from our current policy. They are clarifying the definition of PII. Again, this relates to student data privacy, so we're going to review this in depth and compare what we currently have. They are recommending updates to 5500R, which is a regulation connected to the previously mentioned policy. We do not have this as a regulation. However, we incorporate a lot of the elements of this regulation already in our policy 5500. They're recommending updates to a policy 5550, student privacy. We do not have this policy number. However, many elements of this policy are already in our policy 5500. And they're recommending updates to 8635-R, information and data privacy, security breach, and notification regulation. We do not have this regulation. However, many elements of this regulation appear in our policy 1300, which is titled Security Breach and Notification. And this involves some significant updates based on a determination from the state chief data privacy officer, again, modifying some of the data privacy requirements for school districts. That is it. If there are no questions, I'm finished.
Thank you, Adrian, for that presentation on the policies. At this time, we have our new business. Next on the agenda is a community student organization presentation. Can I please have Ms. Richards, Stacy Richards, come up? Ms. Richards is the Senior Manager Outreach and Education for the In Control Program and the Director in Planned Parenthood, Central Western New York. She's going to present to us information regarding her organization and how she deals with the children in our community. Go ahead.
Yeah, so why do we have this presentation?
The In Control is an organization that works with the children within the schools. So that's why she.
I'm not asking why she's here, I'm asking why, from a board perspective, what does her presentation align with?
Oh, it's aligning with the organizations like SLC, and showing the other different organizations out there that are student groups and what they do and how they're filtered into the city schools.
So how will that connect with the Student Leadership Congress? How will
It's showing it. Go ahead.
Yeah, how will In Control
Well,
connect with the?
first, President Ellie, let's do this. Let her present.
I need to get some perspective.
But I'm the chair, so I'm going to let her present because I think that's decent and in order. And then if you have questions, then we can relate to
All
that.
right.
But I don't think that's the appropriate thing to do at this time.
Well,
I think we
no,
need to let her
no,
present.
It is in the sense that.
Cynthia,
No, all I'm saying is.
President
that to be
Ellie,
able
I just want her to
understand
present.
it. Okay.
Yeah, I want her to present, and then you would get a better understanding if you let her speak.
But I already know what In Control does.
Okay, but everybody else doesn't.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, but wait a minute. Here, I am the chair, so I'm gonna ask for us to just reel this in for a minute. I'm asking her to speak and let her speak like we do for every presenter. We never do this before anybody else presents, so we're gonna let her go ahead and speak so she can present herself. If we have any other question, we can put it on the board.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't know why.
Yeah, but we can discuss that at a later time, but we don't have to do that now. I think that's
Well, I
not
think
fair
we-
to her. I don't think that's fair to her, and I think that we should go ahead and let her speak at this time.
No, I'm gonna let her speak. I just needed to
Okay,
understand.
but we need to understand that right now. We can talk about that later. I don't think this is the time.
Well,
No, it's not. It's
policy.
disrespect. But
Do with
okay,
policy. Yeah.
okay. Wait a minute. No, I don't want to. No, I'm gonna let her speak because what we had said we were gonna do is let other organizations speak in reference to the policy of the student. Or that's all that is in reference to. Yeah, but we already talked
You know
about
what,
that.
Commissioner Griffin, that is fine. I just want to give you some context that President Elliott was requesting context around
Right.
the presentation, that's all.
But we already
Let's
knew that
continue
part.
This evening, let's continue, and then we'll take it from there. And thank you so much for coming this evening.
Yeah, we do appreciate you being here. We just don't understand why you're here.
But
So
that's
what I was trying to
well,
figure out.
you should understand it because we spoke about it. But I think that was very disrespectful for what you just did. I do apologize for that. Go ahead, Ms. Richards.
Good evening. I appreciate your time. Again, my name is Stacy Richards, and I'm Senior Manager of Outreach and Education for Planned Parenthood Central Western, and I am Program Director of In Control, our teen program. And I just want to give a little background history and some of the things that we are doing today to make sure our young people are healthy and whole. And so in 1996, In Control was created via a collaboration between Planned Parenthood, Rochester, Syracuse, and Metro Council.
Excuse me, miss. Could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
myself. Thank you.
Is that better?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll start again. In 1996, In Control was created via a collaboration between Planned Parenthood, Rochester, Syracuse, and Metro Council for Teen Potential and Baden Street Settlement, and we received our first round of state funding under the Community-Based Adolescent Pregnancy Program. And In Control is a Planned Parenthood brand. We're still funded by New York State Department of Health. We were awarded another 5-year CAP grant, which began July 1, 2023, and ends June 30th, 2028. And so for over 25 years, in collaboration with Rochester Youth, we've developed programs for teens with a purpose. In Control offers comprehensive, empowering sex education and youth development programs to help teens gain the knowledge they need to make informed choices. Our educators provide non-biased, age-appropriate, and medically accurate information about sexual health education and personal health issues that affect youth in the city of Rochester. We facilitate with fidelity evidence-based curriculum, Making Proud Choices and Be Proud, Be Responsible, which have been named Best Evidence-Based Intervention Programs by the Center for Disease Control and the New York State Department of Health. They both align with the New York State Department of Education Health Education Learning Standards. Learning goals includes delaying initiation of sex among inexperienced youth, reducing unprotected sex among sexually active youth, and helping teens to clarify their own values about sexual decisions and pressures. Module activities, videos, role-playing, and demonstrations are designed to be informative and interactive to increase participation and enhance learning. We currently hold a 3-year MOA with the Rochester City School District to facilitate comprehensive evidence-based sex education in the classroom with middle and high school scholars. And again, our current MOA expires June 2025. The teen pregnancy rate in Rochester has seen a significant decline over the past few decades. In 1990, approximately 13% of girls aged 15 to 19 gave birth in Rochester. By 2020, this rate had decreased to about 3%. In 2010, the teen birth rate for girls aged 15 to 19 was 66 per 1,000. By 2020, this rate had decreased to 29 per 1,000, representing a 56% decline. Although the teen pregnancy rate in Rochester has dropped significantly from its peak, it remains a critical area of focus for public health. Our youth development program provides opportunities for young people, including a peer educator program, summer and school year work opportunities in partnership with the City of Rochester's Summer of Opportunity Program and Monroe County Rochester Work Summer Youth Employment Program. We also provide college tours, creative arts programs, including music production. We have an in-house recording studio, video production under the direction of Mr. Shabaka Muassar, an In Control collaborator for 19 years, culinary arts, dance with an in-house studio, and also photography under the direction of Chris Johnson, a photographer and local small business owner. We also offer fashion design under the direction of Nathaniel Johnson, who recently received a key to the city. We have the longest-running teen fashion show and the longest-running teen radio show in collaboration with WXIR 100.9 FM. And with Rochester Community Television, we create public service announcements about issues most important to teens and are created by In Control program participants and air year-round on the television network. In Control works diligently to provide spaces where teens may speak freely and authentically about their experiences, not only with those who share their interests, but also with those who may not understand or like their interests, but are learning to communicate, set boundaries, understand what a healthy relationship looks like, and advocate for sustainable resolutions to issues that affect them, their peers, families, and their communities. We work to keep empathy and understanding at the forefront while providing Rochester teens with youth development opportunities they not only ask for, but help create and sustain. As we look more at and introduce youth to the intersectionality of teen life, whose key aspects are multiple identities, privilege and oppression, systemic influences, and holistic understanding. We know these facets of identity do not exist independently, but interact to create unique experiences. For instance, a teen might identify as Black, female, queer, and living with a disability. Each of these aspects influences their experiences in different ways. In this, we must recognize that individuals can experience both privilege and oppression based on different aspects of their identity. For example, a teen might experience privilege due to their socioeconomic status, but face discrimination due to their race. We must also highlight how systemic issues such as racism, sexism, homophobia, and ableism interact and compound to affect teens' lives. Due to the complexity of their lives, it is essential for teens to begin understanding the full scope of the challenges and opportunities they face. By considering and leaning into the intersectionality of their lives, teens can gain a holistic understanding of their experiences, leading to effective communication, peer, familiar, and community support, and experience interventions that encourage them to take a step back, assess situations, be willing to consider different perspectives, and make decisions which may bring about positive outcomes for all affected. So yes, I believe scholars seeking to become student commissioner representatives should become members of specific youth groups where they are able to learn skills which will in turn allow them to communicate freely, respectfully, and unabashedly the needs of their peers while standing in who they truly are and understanding and accepting the responsibilities of this space as a student representative. And if there's an opportunity, I would love for In Control to be a part of helping to guide and lead these young folks as they work to become student representatives for the city school district.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. I just want to clarify something so that there's a better understanding. I appreciate that presentation. It was a great presentation, and it also gave a lot of information who myself, I did not know that you guys do. So I do appreciate that, because today I did learn something myself sitting here. Yes, I do know what In Control is, but everything that it stands for, I did not. So it would be wrong for me to say I did. You really enlightened me, and I'm sure that you enlightened a lot of community members and a lot of people out there that probably did not know what In Control really, really does. So with that being said, I just want to ask a question. Approximately how many students are currently involved in the In Control throughout the city of Rochester?
Currently, we have about 60, and of those, 15 are peer educators that are paid to work with us throughout the school year.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions from any of the board members?
Yes, so I'll go back to,
Let me start
all
from.
right.
Yeah, let me start from right here.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. In Control is a well-known organization in Rochester. We truly appreciate the work you do. I worked with another youth-serving organization for a number of years, and sometimes we collaborated with In Control. So it was nice to highlight things that many of us are aware of, and maybe some new things that have evolved. And I think I'm going to just digress and allow board members to weigh in, because there's nothing to keep students that are Rochester City School District students from accessing the SLC opportunities, even if they're part of In Control. So, you know, it sounds like some misinformation is there, but I welcome to learn more about what you guys do.
I appreciate that.
Hi, and also very familiar with In Control. We actually, when I started on the board, one of your, a staff member who worked at In Control was our board parent rep on one of our committees. But to Commissioner Simmons' point, and I just have to say as an executive director myself, and I know President Elliott, who also works at a nonprofit, and I apologize, I had stepped down, so I didn't catch the beginning. But I too was confused as to why an organization was presenting tonight at a policy meeting. And so I do think, as Commissioner Simmons has mentioned, that there is some misinformation or perhaps cross communications here. And certainly we value the partnership and collaboration that RCSD does have with In Control. And my goal and hope is in the future, when it comes up again, to renew the MOA, that we move forward, because we have had lots of great success with you guys, with shout out Center for Youth, although I know that's not everyone's, but there are a number of organizations we work with. And that does not stop students who are current RCSD students from participating in the democracy and the process that we've created to students have a voice here through a democratic process, which is why we have student government. And so I just want to share that, especially to communities listening, that this board many years ago created a pathway for students to have a voice, for them to vote in a very sort of microorganism of democracy, if you will. And so that's why there's some confusion, because if they are an RCSD student and they participate in Control, because they're an RCSD student, they can participate in student government. That doesn't stop them. In fact, we encourage all students, even if they're not connected with student government, or they are, to find other organizations that provide services to youth, because RCSD cannot do it all in the 6 hours. You guys are there in the evenings, weekends, doing special summer programming and trips with them, keeping them active, engaged, and educated more than we can do in 6 hours. I just want to put that out there. So thank you for your time tonight. I just don't want you to feel like, you know, you're walking away without an answer, but there is no answer to give tonight. We value your partnership. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
One second. As a chair, I just want to clarify something so that everybody in the community is understanding what is happening here. Because in a previous meeting, it was a discussion made that there was a lot of different organizations that not just SLC, that were out there that involved children. So this presentation by Mrs. Richardson, which I greatly appreciate what you've done, and it was for us to engage other organizations that were committed to, that had children involvement. And so this is what this was for. Like we had the other group that will not be able to make it is Talented 10, which was another group that is out in the organization, that is out here in the city that has children that participate in it. So we had a discussion in our previous policy meeting. I mean, and I don't even think it was a policy meeting. It was an unfinished business. I think it was a business meeting. And one of the concerns were we had SLC, but I was saying that there were other groups out there that we could probably engage in the process. That was where this came from. So I just want to make that clear where this all came from, because we had the In Control and we have the Talented 10. We're talking about team empowerment, all other groups that just to come present so they understand that there are other groups out here that are working in the city of Rochester and within the school system, and it just wasn't SLC. I just wanted to clear that up for the public.
Can I just add one thing to that, if you don't mind? This is in the conversation regarding the student committee representative and the parent representative. You all recall, the board has amended the bylaws back in, I think it was April's business meeting, and part of the bylaws revisions was that now there's opportunity for student committee reps to be part of it, and so this is, right, but I just wanted to just add that as the additional clarification.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to ask in the beginning, so that I understood why we have organizations that were here, because we were looking at what the to have student representatives on the board, and the question became around some wording in the contract. But the issue that I'm having is that what the Student Leadership Congress does, bring it in these organizations, it doesn't connect. There's a disconnect.
Well, for you, Cynthia Elliott, or President Elliott, okay, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, but let me.
Hello, Vice President Abundis, I don't want that. We can discuss something without that.
Respectfully, commissioners, I think if you speak over each other, the public cannot hear you.
No, it wasn't at the wrong time.
No, but honestly, President, and in all due respect, I think we're doing the presenter a disjustice to do that in front of her. So there's a time and a place for everything, and I respect what you're saying, but not at this time. If you had a question about the presenter, you could have said that in the 15 minutes before she started talking.
No, because it would have helped me. It would have informed me, Commissioner. And that's what you're not getting. If I would have understood the context.
This is when you addressed it.
Her presentation would have been more beneficial.
I think it was disrespectful to the presenter.
All right, I'm done because you don't get it. So I'm done.
Commissioners, please be recognized by the chair to speak before you speak, because otherwise it's chaos and confusion.
Yeah, I'm done. So, because she doesn't get it. So.
I don't think you get it. I get it wholeheartedly, but I think there's a time and place for everything. And because you want to say something when you want to say it, I don't think that was the time. As a chairperson, I just asked you to stop, and you didn't. So you wrote something out. You read it the last time we had a meeting, and you need to practice what you're preaching, because what you did was disrespectful. Period.
I don't mean to be disrespectful. That wasn't it. What I was trying to do.
President Ellis, please refrain from speaking to me right at this moment.
Commissioners, please address the issue and not the person.
May I be excused?
Commissioner, please address the issue and not the.
Even to our staff, you are disrespectful. Even to our staff, you are disrespectful to the staff, and every day they have to suffer through having to interact with you. So please stop saying that she was being disrespectful, asking for clarity.
It's out of order, Commissioner LeBron. That's out of order. Please address the issue. Address the issue and not each other. Address the issue and not each other.
What you call the meeting?
Commissioner, my recommendation is a brief adjournment. Commissioners,
Frontier Field.
Commissioners, please have a brief adjournment.
Bye. That's your only experience in life. Bye.
My recommendation is for a brief adjournment. Commissioner, my recommendation is a brief adjournment. Can we adjourn for a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Motion
to adjourn for
second.
Oh, all in favor? Yep, it
All
was
in favor,
seconded.
aye.
All right, thank you for a couple minutes.
And I'm asking for a motion for President Elliott to take over as the chair for the policy for tonight's meeting so that we may finish to conduct the business that we are here to do tonight.
Motion.
Second.
Motioned by Commissioner Santiago, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we will continue this meeting. We'll go down under new business, B, multiple policy presentation. I'm going to turn it over to our staff support, Charisma Travis.
Thank you, President Elliott. Good evening. So tonight is a review of the second parts of SPED Ed, the last part of SPED Ed, policies 4216 through 4240, and then policy 4314.3, which is the service learning policy. So as always, all these policies follow the policy process. And those that contributed were the policy chair, the superintendent, general counsel, executive cabinet and administration, and myself. And as part of the standard operating procedure, all policies were sent to relevant advisory group for review. We did not receive any feedback, but they all were able to review them. And also the district administration was also to review. And so now final recommendations are being forwarded to the policy committee to follow the policy management process as outlined in policy 2410. The first policy, 4216, there are updated policies to reflect state law and regulation, no NESBA updates. Policy 4217 and 4218 have no significant updates and no updates from NESBA. Policy 4219, updated policy to reflect state law and regulation, no NESBA updates. Policies 4220 and 4221, no significant updates and no NESBA updates. Policy 4222, there are no significant updates at this time, but as General Counsel Neal mentioned earlier, NESBA has a similar policy, 4773. There were is a recommended policy, and if that policy is being followed, there are some required updates to be made. Policy 4240, added in a sentence regarding the student safety plan. There are no NESBA updates. And then policy 4314.3, recommend removing civic engagement from the policy's name, as this policy's focus is specific to service learning, and there is another policy that already covers the civic engagement. There are no NESBA updates. Next steps, the policies would be forwarded out of this committee tonight to the board business meeting later on this month, and they will follow the process outlined in policy 2410, slated for board vote at the August business meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Charisma. So is there a motion to forward service learning 4314.3 out of the policy committee, including the name change to service learning?
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Santiago. Is there a second?
But it's also 4216, 4240.
Okay, so-
I
Oh,
think we went out of
wrong one.
order.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can just finish this vote and then go back to that one, I think.
Okay.
Motion.
Second? Who's?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry about that. So is there a motion to forward policies 4216 through 4240 out of the policy committee?
Motion.
Moved by Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Santiago. Any questions or comments related to those policies? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's one other thing I'd like to have a motion to include on the agenda. If I could do it this way, General Counsel,
If you're making a motion to amend the agenda that was adopted to add something else?
Yeah.
if I
So you
can.
should make a motion to add something to the agenda, yep.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to add the policy, let me just get it. The 2300 Exhibit 3, like to add that to the agenda.
Motion.
Moved by Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Simmons, any questions or comments related to this agenda item? This is in reference to the student representatives on the board committees, and the question about in terms of the exhibit itself, the must versus the will for, excuse me, let me just go back, to strongly recommend or strongly encourage versus must in the language. So if you could pull that up, Charisma. Okay.
All right. So for the board committee representatives, just to look at both of them, the parent rep process. So currently, parent reps must have a current RCSD student in pre-K to 12, excluding CBOs, and cannot be a current RCSD employee. Membership to our RCSD school and or district-wide parent group is recommended but not required. And so similarly, for the student committee rep, was being recommended. This is a combination of board input as well as SOC's presentation previously at a previous meeting. The student must be in grades 8th through 12th, enrolled at a RCSD school, in good academic standing, on track to graduate, membership to a RCSD school student group or student leadership congress recommended but not required. And then application process for both representatives would be reviewed by the board office to ensure the applicant is a parent, legal guardian, or student and not employed by the RCSD. The application is then reviewed by the committee chair. If moving forward, the committee chair and interested applicant will meet to discuss the role. The committee chair will make a final decision on the applicant.
All right, thank you. And so I know that there was some questions regarding the statement that Student Leadership Congress had in terms of a requirement for student representatives who serve on the committees to be a part of SLC. My concern is that I think that we should do it, that it should be recommended or strongly encouraged. So I'd like to just sort of open that up if there's any, I'll just open up to you, Commissioner Santiago, first.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea, to strongly encourage, and the members of SOC can, make the initiative to reach out to the student, to ensure that they come along and sign up for SOC. So I don't think that's a bad idea.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Vice President LeBron?
I would just add, I do like the recommended but not required, but I do want to then potentially see if it's at least recommended that they do touch base and not leave that open, that they do connect, at least minimally during the budget stuff, because part of even the parent reps being on the board is the fact that they are supposed to be a part of the parent council so that they can go back and report as a parent to other parents, everything happening. But I particularly think for my committee, the budget one, the finance piece, that there should be a connection for the student, whoever ends up being the rep, to be a part of SEL, I think, for finance, minimally for me, that's all.
So let me just ask, why would you think that, why would you want to have it that way, Vice President?
Because the budget process is the same way with the parents. They go back before, once we drop our budget book, our parent rep goes back to both, ours is part of the bilingual education and PLAC, and they have those conversations. That's sort of how sometimes questions are even generated for that individual to come back and ask in those meetings, in the budget deliberations. And if there's a student rep, it would be the same as the parent rep. We only have one that serves on finance. I think it's a little bit of a bigger pressure, although we have other avenues like the public hearings for everyone to come in and participate in. I think it's just a little
Right.
different during the budget piece.
This does speak to perhaps we can look at, maybe we don't require them to be on the committee, but they can report to the SLC.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so, that they could, when they have the meetings, that they would be able to report out from the committee, what has been the discussions in those committees to the SLC. Any discussion on that? Any thoughts?
As long as there's continuity and communication, it doesn't make sense to have a bunch of separate entities and none are coexisting. We have those type of conversations all the time, yet we go and try to create another silo. So there needs to be continuity and collaboration among whomever serves in this capacity.
All right, so talk a little bit more about what that means.
So I believe the student, to be very concise, needs to, yes, report to the SLC. I think we can, and there's opportunity to recruit other students as well. If we feel that there's a lack, we can identify and do some targeted recruiting and bring in students from these existing organizations, and they can be representative and
then report.
And lift and report.
Just to ensure that we don't have students who may not be able to attend those committee meetings regularly? Is that what you're referencing?
And I think SOC can set up a structure that way to make sure that the student groups, the representatives from the student groups can come and report out to SOC. Deputy Turner, I think that's something that could be set up, correct?
And, I do want to just lift that, the legislation that's on, there's communication coming that around July, potentially, there will be legislation around a student rep. The RCSD is already ahead of the game. We have that. We've had it for years. And it doesn't mean that nothing can be tweaked, but, I think we're in a good space, and that's the opportunity.
Just to comment on that, in some of the legislation that's coming down the pike, obviously, there are different levels of school district. In some of the legislation, it specifically requires that the student is selected through the student body government. In some of them, it's explicitly like struck out. And so I think once if the legislation, the governor/the legislation, some school districts will have a choice to make, and we might have to revisit this because it could then require the district to specifically take an action. But some school districts are required to select it from within the student body, somebody elected through the student government process.
Okay, because I do think that, to Commissioner Simmons' point, just piggybacking on that, the question, putting this into practice, so, how will we recruit? Are they going to be committed? What happens if they're not committed? Is there another person that we place with that? And then, are they reporting out? And then, to your point, General Counsel, with the new legislation, is the legislation that the Student Leadership Congress would appoint students to be on the committee? Is that what the legislation is?
No, the draft legislation, so obviously there are different levels of school district. So for a city school district, the current draft of the legislation that I see does not specifically require that the student be selected from it. It doesn't say they have to appoint it. The student has to be selected from somebody appointed that's elected through that process. But in some levels of school district, the legislation specifically says it has to be someone. But from what I'm seeing for a city school district, it does not specifically require that at this time.
Okay, so in getting back to the Vice President's recommendation, you're saying that you want to have the person to report back to the Student Leadership Congress? Okay, all right, okay, all right. Yeah, okay, all right. All right, any other questions or comments related to this? All those in favor? Aye, any opposed?
Did you make the motion?
Did we make a motion?
No, we didn't make, we did not make a motion.
It was a motion, wasn't, I think it was a motion on table to amend the agenda to include
Oh, I'm
this
sorry,
item.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, okay.
Yep.
So, motion to move, are we moving this? What is the motion that we should be making, that we approve?
I thought we were motioning to the board business meeting to then vote on that.
Yeah, how does the process work? Well, let me just, We could do it now?
If you want to, you can, unless Adrian says otherwise, you can approve approve it tonight, because all is really being approved is, the criteria for the board committee representatives. This includes both the student committee rep and the parent rep.
Okay, so we will motion to approve the criteria as stated, to add to policy 2300.
Motion.
And for clarity, it is that the student does not have to be in the student government. Is that what's being approved?
It's recommended.
It's just recommended, but
That's right, yeah.
not absolutely required at this point.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So motion by Vice President LeBron, was there a second?
Oh, you're not
Second?
voting on it?
Y'all sure they don't have to be, because it exists
Well,
for a reason?
recommended but not required.
Okay, all right, I'll second. Are you seconded already? Okay, I'm with
But they report back to SEs,
I'll stick
yeah,
with
to SEL. They have to report back.
I'm under the weather this evening.
All those in favor?
I'm in favor.
All right, all
Okay.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is the last item on the agenda that we added, and so I'm going to ask if we can do the board meeting survey, those who want to do it. And then if not, let me just ask for a motion to adjourn. It's, moved by, moved by Commissioner, Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Santiago. All those in favor? Aye. All right, good night, everybody.